Cybersecurity is a state of being protected against the criminal or unauthorized use of electronic data, or the measures taken to achieve this. This is a big deal considering nowadays a lot of businesses, they use electronic data and they need to keep their data private. When hackers attack these businesses, that can mean devastating consequences for both the business and the consumers. One example I found most interesting was the 2017 Equifax breach. I even remember the day whenever I got an alert from Experian telling me my data may have possibly been taken. So for those of you who don't know, Equifax is one of the major credit reporting agencies of the world. These agencies gather personal information from individuals to accumulate a credit score, then sell it to third parties. You can't opt out of this process, but it is useful whenever trying to buy a vehicle, taking out loans, or getting a credit card. Due to this company taking in so much large amounts of sensitive personal data, they are a big target for cyber criminals. Because of this, their security needs to be top-notch, so people will not have their personal data taken. While researching the Equifax data breach, I found a timeline that led to this ginormous data breach. In 2005, the former CEO, Richard Smith, added multiple companies, IT systems, and data to the company. Equifax was overseeing 1,200 times the amount of data held in the Library of Congress every day. This created concerning data risk and problems within the IT systems. Equifax did not have a proper security program to protect all this sudden data that came in. On March 7th, a vulnerability in the Apache Struts software was disclosed. This software was used to run some applications on legacy operating systems. Homeland Security told Equifax about this vulnerability, and then their global threat and vulnerability management team emailed this to more than 400 people on March 9th, saying they needed to make the patches within 48 hours. But not all went well because the systems did not get fully patched. The ACIS, a custom-built internet-facing consumer dispute portal made in the 1970s, was still running on the Apache Struts vulnerability, which left the system in data vulnerable to an attack. So May 13th, the cyber attack began, lasting 76 days. The attacks opened a remote web shell to gain access to the network. In there, they found a file that was containing unencrypted credentials such as username and passwords, and this gave them access to the data outside the ACIS environment. This made them able to access 48 unrelated databases. Attackers then sent 9,000 queries to these databases, which in turn they located unencrypted personal identifiable information 256 times, and then they transferred it out of the Equifax environment, and this ended up affecting 148 million consumers. Equifax employees found an IP address originating from China. The activity showed image files relating to consumer credit investigations were taken from the ACIS application. They discovered it was actively under attack and launched an incident report effort. July 30th, Equifax found multiple ACIS code vulnerabilities. They also noticed a second IP address owned by a German ISP, but was leased to a Chinese provider. This caused Equifax to shut down the ICIS web portal. When it was taken offline, cyber attacks finally stopped. July 31st, Chief Information Officer David Webb informed Richard Smith, the CEO, about the attacks. They believe attackers used that Apache Struts vulnerability to get to the data. August 2nd, Equifax contacted the cybersecurity firm Mandiant to start a forensic investigation on it. They also contacted outside counsel and the FBI about the cyber incident. The biggest question I had was, how did this go unnoticed for like 76 days? When doing more research, the answer I came across was pretty baffling to me. Equifax, being such a big business that collects tons of information about people, they needed to have an alert system of some sort because, I mean, my personal information, I want it to stay personal and not for some weird people out there to get it. So they did not see the data breach because the ACIS network had been, the security had been inactive for 19 days because it had the security certificate had expired. July 29th, Equifax finally updated the expired certificate, and that's whenever they noticed that the data was being extracted. After the update is also whenever they found the IP addresses. So the aftermath of all this, in late August, the Mandiant confirmed the attackers accessed a ton of consumer PII, which is like your social security numbers, your addresses, driver's license number, a lot of different stuff that could identify you and people could use against you. Equifax did have to prepare for informing the public about this attack. They created a website for individuals to find out if they were affected by the breach. This would also help them to register for credit monitoring and identity theft services. In addition, they created a call center which staffed 1,500 temporary employees. On September 4th, Equifax and Mandiant completed a list of 148 people who would possibly have been affected. On September 7th, Equifax informed the public about the breach, and they were unprepared for the large amount of people who were affected. The website and call center became super overwhelmed suddenly, and people were not able to get the information about whether they were affected or how they could protect themselves against the identity theft in an appropriate amount of time. Nothing was confirmed about what happened to the data after it was taken. No one knows if it was sold on the black web or if they used the personal information themselves. I know I was not affected, but there could be someone out there with the information, but they can't do anything now because after freezing credit and everything, it's kind of hard to use. So Equifax held several officials accountable. The CIO and Chief Security Officer both took early retirements on September 15th. The CEO left the company on September 16th. October 2nd, Graham Payne, a Senior Vice President and a Chief Information Officer for Global Corporate Platforms, were terminated. Jermaine Payne was a highly rated employee for 7 years and senior manager for nearly 400 people. He managed many IT systems, including ACIS. October 3rd, the former CEO, Richard Smith, testified before Congress, saying it was a human error and failure to communicate that caused this breach. Oh, I already did that slide. So how could this all have been prevented? Well, if people would have taken appropriate steps before the attack occurred, I think it would have been pretty easy to prevent. When the vulnerabilities were found in the Apache Struts system, they should have made sure all the patches were appropriately made. Plus, when the CEO added the additional data to the company, they should have been prepared in the IT systems to be able to protect all this data that was coming on. On the custom-built legacy system, Equifax had critical IT systems. They knew the security risk of operating legacy IT because they had begun a legacy infrastructure modernization effort, but it was too late to prevent the breaches. There should have been a clear line of authority in the IT department also. So like whoever should have managed over it and made sure everybody did their part to make sure that all those vulnerabilities were fixed. And instead there was one place where it wasn't, and caused all this stuff to happen. Their certificates that expired never should have. This included over 300 security certificates and 79 certificates for monitoring business critical domains. If security certificate did not expire and patches were fully implemented, the data breach would have never have happened.